So go ahead and take it away, Tony.
Great. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. I'm going to try to share my screen real quick here. Let's see. Okay. There we go. Sweet. So hopefully, can you guys see that okay? Okay, excellent. So, well, my task this morning is to talk about community solar subscription programs. So there are a number of community solar programs available to the people of Maine. Subscription programs are one of those. That's kind of what we focus on. And you've probably seen some information come to your house, maybe in the mail, maybe someone's come and knocked on your door to talk about community solar subscriptions. You may have seen us at an event, a community event somewhere. We're part of a lot of community events. And these are the types of programs typically that you're hearing about in those situations. So we're going to dive into a little bit about why community solar programs have become popular, what the benefits are, exactly how they work in terms of billing. That's a big question that people have. How does the billing work? Then a little bit about how you can get involved if you choose to. So a little bit about us. We're a local company. I grew up here in Maine. I've been doing business in Maine here for 20 plus years. And when I found out about community solar, I was really excited because I've been in the industry for a long time in terms of renewables and green building and stuff like that. So I knew nothing about it. And I thought it was really important that the people of Maine find out about it, get good information, understand what they're signing up for. So that's why I started Maine Community Solar. And that's what we're doing. We're out there talking to people about community solar programs, helping them understand how they work and then helping them enroll. So in my experience, the challenge for adoption of renewable energy, at least for kind of your everyday consumer and a lot of businesses, there's some pretty significant barriers to entry, right? Buying panels, either buying them outright or financing them, owning the building that you live in so you can put them on there, the roof, all that type of stuff. It's a challenge and it's limited adoption. So there's a limit to how many people were able or willing to do that. And along comes community solar. You have the ability with these programs, whether it's a subscription or a paid model, but you have the ability to participate in renewable energy and save money, get the benefits without a lot of the barriers to entry that there used to be. So it's really been a game changer. This is an opportunity for almost everybody that lives in the state of Maine to participate in renewable energy, which is really exciting to me. What changed? Why did it change? The state of Maine passed legislation in 2019 that empowered things like net energy billing and stuff like that. Also, the cost to produce electricity with solar panels has dropped by about 90% in the last decade. So technology has gotten better. Legislation has caught up. States have, not just Maine, but around the country, have created mandates for renewable energy use in their state. So it's kind of a convergence of technology and legislation, and frankly, kind of a cultural awareness too, has changed and made all of this possible. So I know Thomas is going to talk about, paid model. I'm talking about the subscription model, which is a free program. So like anything, there are trade-offs, but these are the benefits of the subscription model. Of course, you're supporting local renewable energy, which I think is super important. You're going to save 15% on your electric utility bill. There are some programs out there for 10%. It's a similar program. The savings just based on the particular farm that you subscribe to, your utility service area, and in some cases your meter type. So, but 15% savings is very common in the state of Maine. There are no fees to join or participate. You don't have to buy any equipment for your house or install anything or maintain it. You don't have to worry about any of that. With the subscription model, there's no long-term commitment. It's great for renters. So a lot of people, maybe couldn't participate before if they didn't own their building. And it's also fast and easy to sign up. So, you'd have to do a lot of that front end research and investigating and crunch those numbers and stuff like that. It's really fast and easy to get involved. So those are the benefits of the subscription model of community solar. Now, let's get into the nitty gritty. This is where everyone loves the idea, right? Hey, this sounds great. I can participate in renewable energy. It's free. I save a little bit of money. Okay. But how does it work? And this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where we spend 90% of our time talking to people, helping them understand how community solar works. Once you get it, I think it's fairly simple, but we're going to go through it anyway, from a real high level all the way down to the billing. So here's what happens. You subscribe to a local solar farm. They produce renewable electricity on your behalf, and they send it into the electric grid. Your utility, in my case, CMP, recognizes that electricity in the form of kilowatt hour credits, solar credits, whatever you want to call them. But I get actual kilowatt hour credits on my bill that reduces the cost of my bill from CMP. Okay. Then for those credits, your solar farm that produced them charges you for those at a discounted rate. Okay. That way you're guaranteed to save money because the credits were taken off your bill. You're paying for them at a 15% discount in this case, to make sure that it works, because your electricity use is variable, solar production is variable. To make sure that it works, any unused credits are banked. So your utility keeps a record of how many extra credits you have in the bank. And when your farm produces less, they'll give you those credits to use at that time. So those credits are good for a year, but that helps balance things out where you have two variables. This is a little diagram that we use sometimes that just, gives a visual of how it works. Obviously, you have the solar farm over there with the panels. They send energy into the grid. That applies credits to your bill. You pay a discounted rate on those credits. You support renewable energy, and you save a little bit of money. So I like to have a visual. Some people like to see things in a graphic form. Now let's get into the billing a little bit. And this is really where people have questions, right? So everyone wants to know, how does it show up on my bill? And rightfully so. And interestingly, for the first couple of years, there were no bills available, which was really weird for people because they weren't sure how it was going to look. Well, now there are bills available. People are getting credits. And it's helpful, I think, whenever I talk to people, to show them an example of a bill. Over on the left, in this case, CMP makes a little note that gives you a heads up that the the kilowatt hour usage on your bill may not show up as the actual kilowatt hour usage because of net energy billing credits. And it's paragraph 2 of the your messages on the left. But what you'll see here is kilowatt hours from your solar farm are applied to your bill. And what that does, it reduces, and you can see at the top there, that top red arrow, it reduces the total amount that you're going to have to pay to CMP. That's the minimum amount that anyone has to pay, or any residential customer has to pay, to have a CMP meter and be connected to the grid. And then you'll see down at the bottom under the monthly energy usage, that lower red arrow, how their usage is zeroed out for the months of March, April, May, June, July, August. That's because their farm is producing at least as much electricity as they're using. So that's page 1 of their CMP bill. What you'll see here on page 2, you'll see because the farm supplied enough electricity to cover their entire usage, they're billed for 0 kilowatt hours of supply. That's in the top red arrow. And then your meter details is important. This is where you're going to know that you're receiving renewable energy credits or solar energy credits. If you subtract your prior meter reading from your current meter reading, you get 1,588 kilowatt hours. Okay. And so you'd expect right where that second red arrow points on the right, total kilowatt hours, to be 1,588. In this case, it shows up as 0. Okay. And that's your clue that you've received at least 1,588 kilowatt hours from your solar farm. Then you'll also see here your charges, and that are 0 kilowatt hours times the supply rate. So once again, zeroed out. That's why you're paying less, and you're just paying the minimum fee to CMP. So that's what your bill is going to look like. We work with 3 developers: Arcadia, Nautilus, and Ampion. I'm showing customer billing from Arcadia here. Every subscriber to a community solar farm gets an online portal, just like your online CMP portal. But in this case, you can see it's mapped out here. The total charges, what their savings is, and then the total that they owe. They have a full billing history here. So, anyone that subscribes has the ability to look at their account in detail and match it up with their CMP bill, match it up with this statement, and also match it up with their bank sheet. So this is provided by the utility, and this shows scenarios where your farm has produced more electricity than you could use, or less electricity. So generation is what's produced, account usage is what you've used. Then it shows in excess or a negative amount, and that shows what you have in your bank. And typically the excess can be used during the winter if your farm is not producing as much electricity as you use, but it can be used at any time. As you can see here, they had a dramatic increase in usage, more than double. And so they dipped into their bank to cover that in the month of August, that is. This is just another quick glimpse at the customer billing portal. This is from Arcadia. It has some interesting information in there. But that's where you're going to access all of your account information, billing method, statements, everything like that. So everyone has a customer billing portal. This is kind of a simple example, but just to kind of reiterate how it all works. If you use 1,000 kilowatt hours in your billing cycle and your solar farm produces 1,050 kilowatt hours for you, 1,000 kilowatt hours will be applied to your bill as credits. 50 kilowatt hours will be banked for future use. You, the customer, will pay the minimum utility account charge. You're going to owe that to the utility no matter what. You're going to pay for the 1,050 credits at a 15% discount, and then the 50 bank credits will be applied later on when you need them. One interesting thing about this is typically the credits, the overages occur during the summer when rates are a little bit lower, and they're applied during the winter when rates are a little bit higher. So you end up getting some additional savings there as well. There's a great resource, the Maine Office of the Public Advocate. So community solar, as you all know, you're getting stuff in the mail. People are coming to your door. A lot of times people don't even know where to start, what questions to ask. Check out the Maine Office of the Public Advocate website. They're a great resource. And they even have like a handout, a one-pager that has questions you should ask. They have a nice video on there. I didn't include the URL, but if you just type in Maine Office of the Public Advocate Community Solar, it's going to give you a great starting point so that when you do talk to someone, you make sure that you're asking the right questions, and they've kind of done that legwork for you. Some of the questions to ask: what's my saving percentage? There are 10 and 15% discounts in the state of Maine. Doesn't make a huge difference, but if you have an opportunity to save 15%, you can do that. Ask about your disclosure terms. Ask about it. Typically for a residential customer, you're going to get a kilowatt hour credit, but the public advocate suggests that you may be clear about whether you're getting a kilowatt hour or monetary credit. You want to know when your credits will start. Okay. There are people that have signed up for community solar programs a year ago that may not be going live till 2023. There are other developers that have farms that are going live now on a rolling basis. So just make sure you ask. It's not a problem necessarily either way, but you want to be clear and have clear expectations on when your credits can start so you can be prepared for that. Typically, there's a very short cancellation period for residential community solar, and a lot of people do not cancel. The people that fall off the program typically move, but you would like to know what the terms are if you do decide to get out of the program. So make sure you ask that as well. Once again, Maine Office of the Public Advocate, great resource. The question that we always get, is it too good to be true? That's what people always ask us. It does kind of seem that way. When you dive into it, you realize that it's really just a trade-off. But we had a nice conversation with a representative of the Maine Public Utilities Commission that put it a very interesting way that I hadn't really thought of before. And this person was saying, Mainers are already paying for these programs in a lot of ways. You're paying for it in your tax dollars, and you're paying for it in the rate increases that are happening. There have to be upgrades to the grid. There are things that are going on. The state's already moving in this direction. So you're already paying for a lot of this stuff. This is just an opportunity to save a little bit of money and take advantage of these programs that we're already paying for as a state, as consumers and as businesses. It's powered by the same legislation that powers rooftop or on-site solar that is connected to the grid with net energy billing. So it's the same program that already exists. And it's really just a free way to get more people to participate in the renewable energy revolution. So not good to be true. There are some real benefits here, whether you're doing a free subscription model or some other form of community solar. How do I sign up for a subscription? It takes about 10 minutes. You're just going to need some basic information about your electric utility account. You can go to our website and self-serve, or you can call. We have a local customer service team. We're right here on Commercial Street. Call those people. They're super friendly and easygoing. And our job is really to help educate you, answer your questions, and then help you enroll if you're interested. So it's really a positive experience, but feel free to call or hit our website. Doesn't take long. You just need some basic account information with you. A little pitch for Maine Community Solar. We're a local company. Like I said, I grew up here. We have an office on Commercial Street. Our approach is educational. We're not just walking around at doors and just trying to get as many people to sign up as we can as fast as possible. Our goal is to really make sure that you understand what you're getting, what the benefits are, how it works, that type of stuff. We spend a lot of time giving back to the community. We sponsored the Summer Sunsets Live at Thompson's Point this summer to bring the community together. We sponsored an orchard at Georgetown Central School. Like, we're all about community all the way around, not just renewable energy, but bringing people together. And we're always here to help. You'd be surprised how many people we talk to that say, someone came to my house and I signed up for something, but I'm not really sure what that something is, and I don't know how it works. And they have no way to get back in touch with these folks. Well, we have people call us all the time, whether we help them sign up or not, that have questions, and we're here to help answer those questions. If you have questions with your developer, we'll make sure you get in touch with them, make sure they get back to you, but we're always here to help. That's really important to us. And we work with businesses and consumers. So consumers is kind of the main focus of this, but if you have a business and you have questions about that, there are programs available to you. We can help you with those questions as well. And that's it. So Maine Community Solar, that's our website and contact info. And now I'll hand it back over to either Thomas or Aaron or whoever's picking up from here.
Yeah, we can go to Thomas. Thank you so much, Tony.
Sure.
Actually, I see that Bill Weber has a question, maybe before we move on.
Yeah,
Oh,
sure.
okay.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. I'm a big proponent of community solar. In fact, I've signed up for 3 accounts, and I'm still waiting for one of them to come online.
Okay.
Hope that's soon. But one question that I have for you, and then I want to just give you an observation. The question I have is, when you say 15 or 10% savings, is that just power supply or on the T&D as well? And then the biggest complaint I see, and I don't know if it's particular to a specific supplier, but many people object to giving these organizations, many of them are from out of state, their personal bank account information. That people don't want them to deduct dollars directly from their banks. I don't know if that's common amongst all the providers. If you could explain.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. The kilowatt hour credits, because they're applied as a kilowatt hour credit, they come off from, they cover your supply and your delivery. So you could see on the bill that I showed, and I'm sure this will be posted again, but when it multiplied supply, it was 0 kilowatt hours. When it did the math for delivery, it was 0 kilowatt hours. So it applies to both. Your question about auto pay, very common question. Yeah, I understand where people are coming from. Obviously, in this day and age, people sometimes are a little bit hesitant to give out their personal information. What we recommend people do is reserve their spot on a farm with their credit card. Okay, because credit cards obviously have great fraud protection already. You can get points with that credit card, but you can reserve your spot just like you're reserving a hotel room, right? If I reserve a hotel room, I put my credit card on there and say, save my spot, I'm in, here's my card information. You're doing the same thing on the farm. We say, start with your credit card. It's very safe. Put on there as you start to come online, as you get more comfortable, as you get some communications from these folks, maybe you get a customer service call from them, an onboarding call, then you can switch it over to your ACH information and have it happen that way. We actually have plenty of people that just keep it right on their credit card and they collect points from it. They prefer to do it that way, but that is a concern that some folks have. I personally, I have my credit card in there. You know, I have not had any issue with it. I certainly realize that concern. And I think that using a card to get started with some of those fraud protections is a good way to start. As you get more comfortable, you can enter in your ACH information if you choose to do that. You can update your payment information at any time. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you very much. That's great.
Of course, Bill. Should I stop sharing now? Or it looks like there might be one other person with their hand raised. And I don't know if we should do questions now or at the end, whatever you guys want to do.
I feel like we should go ahead and let people ask their questions for your
Okay.
presentation.
Sure. Is there a hand raised for Eileen?
Yes, and thank you very much. It was interesting, the last question about automatic payment. I spent my entire career in electronic payments. I let everybody debit my accounts. It's wonderful. But I hear you on the credit card thing. And I don't do that if it's a nonprofit because I don't want them to have to pay for it, you know?
Sure.
So I would reserve it with a, because sometimes they charge if they use your credit card too, but I endorse your Tony, the thought to getting comfortable with it and reserving it and then switch to ACH so they don't have to pay a fee or you. But my real question is, all of your examples on billing show no charge. Well, my electric bill isn't going to go away. So who's actually charging me the bill that I have to pay? Is that the solar community and not CMP? How does that work?
Sure. Great question. There are two options in the state of Maine. One is called consolidated billing and one is called dual billing. So in the example I used, if you have dual billing, you will still pay CMP that $13.37 minimum charge. Then you'll pay your solar company the rest. If you have consolidated billing, your solar company will pay the $13.37 for you, roll everything together, and you'll just pay your solar company less your discount.
Okay. And I don't anticipate at all that I will have only credits to cover my electricity. I mean, somehow I don't think it's all going to go away. So was your example true?
Well, that's a real live example. That's a real live example. It's actually a person that works here in our office. So that is true. But there are also, and the farm's goal is to match your electricity usage. So in a perfect world, yes, but there will be some months, especially if you start in the winter and you don't have any credits banked, when it may only cover half of your electricity usage to get started. And of course, you'll only save the 15% on the credits that were applied. But as it goes for the year, they're going to catch up, recognize how much electricity you're using, and try to match that on the farm. So yes, it should come very close to matching your entire usage.
Oh, that
If
sounds
I
wonderful.
may just jump in on that question, Tony, perhaps you can speak to how the solar developers determine how to best match up your electricity usage and
Sure.
what's their process for changing it if your usage changes?
Yeah, sure. So, well, first of all, you're going to sync your solar account with your utility account, and you're going to sign a savings agreement. And part of that savings agreement gives them permission to connect to your utility account. Okay. And so there's direct communication between your solar farm and CMP, and they can see back and forth how much electricity you're using. They call it, some people call it dynamic allocation, which is a really fancy sounding term, but they're seeing how much you're using and they're trying to match the amount that they're giving you. Once again, it's two variables, right? No one knows how much electricity they're going to use this month exactly, and no one knows how much electricity the solar farm is going to produce exactly. So it may not match up perfectly every time. That's why there's the bank credit system to cover any difference over time.
And the other question is, I don't understand what Maine Community Solar is. When you started, I thought, well, you were a company providing, creating the solar farm and doing all of this, but now I don't think so. Not for the rest of your presentation. That you
No, I'm sorry if I gave you the impression that
I don't want to blame
that we build solar farms. I can't even hang a picture in my house. So we definitely don't build solar farms. What we do is we educate people about community solar, and we help them sign up for community solar programs. That's the only involvement that we have in the industry. We work with 3 companies that manage solar farms. Nautilus, Arcadia, and Ampion. They're 3 of the largest community solar developers around. But yeah, our job is to strictly educate people. That's the majority of what we're doing. And then we're helping them enroll in a program if they'd like to.
All right. Thank you very much. And I'll lower my hand.
All right.
Tony, thank you so much for that presentation. I just want to make sure that there's still time for Thomas. So I think we'll hold the rest of the questions till the end.
Yes. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now.
That was wonderful. Thank you.
Of
And
course.
Thomas, take it away.
Also, hold your questions because we're going to have plenty of time. Thanks,
True.
Katie, for managing time.
All right. Great presentation, Tony, and really good questions. Let's see if I can get this rolling here. Are you seeing my screen that has my notes or just the slides?
We do see your note.
Got notes now.
Okay, hold on.
If you
Go
to
bottom right.
slideshow.
Yeah, bottom right slideshow if you want.
How's that?
Same. Here we go. So, hey, all right,
Perfect.
we got it.
All right. Thanks. Nice rainy morning here for a little coffee and climate. Thanks for kicking us off, Tony. My name's Thomas Tutor. I grew up in Island in Maine, where self-sufficiency was really part of my childhood. And I've been helping Mainers figure out their most practical options for kicking fossil fuel habits for the last decade or so. You know, as we've heard, the world is in the process of transitioning from a fossil fuel powered civilization to clean energy. And this vital transition is inevitable, but the faster we accomplish it, the more money we save and the better we leave the planet for future generations. Plus, you know, we don't really have any fossil fuels in Maine to begin with. So just quickly, you know, revision. Feel super proud to work at this employee-owned B Corporation. We've done a lot of really good work in New England, and we've got a ton more work to do to electrify the roughly 1 billion machines that are currently powered by fossil fuels in this country. But today we're focused on just the community solar aspect of that. You know, we also do rooftop solar and ground mounts and heat pumps and water heaters and battery storage and electric vehicle charging, really all those technologies to get people off of fossil fuels. But a big piece of that is community solar. And one of the reasons it's so exciting is because it is so inclusive. And the subscription model that Tony talked about is a really good one. You know, and this slide really pertains to both subscription or ownership. But basically, if you have an electric bill For us, our ownership offering is just in CMP territory. We have had solar farms in Versant, the other main utility, the other large main utility. But right now it is just CMP solar farms. So I'll start talking specifically about the ownership model here. But it's great because we look at tons of different homes and rooftops, and some people, for different reasons, are a better fit for a community solar farm share. And just to pull out the differences here a little bit, the subscription offering, as Tony went through, is no upfront cost. You really just pay as you go, and you get that 10 to 15% savings off those kilowatt hours that are produced for you at a farm that you sign up for. And it's typically easy to enter and exit. So if you're just looking to do something for a year or two and not own another asset, and maybe aren't sure if you're going to be paying a CMP electric bill the next few years, subscription is a really good option. We really like the ownership model because the tax credits go to Mainers, and the long-term economics are far better if you're able to own that solar asset yourself. It is, a separate asset, so you've got to figure out what you're going to do with that down the road. There's easy ways that we help people to gift or sell that solar farm if they do decide to move out of CMP territory. If they move within CMP territory, then they can bring their credits from their solar farm with them. So just to sort of put this in perspective, each solar farm member owns a percentage of a large ground mount, like we see here. That's based on the amount of electricity they're looking to produce to cover their CMP bills. So with subscription, you get a bill each month. With ownership, you get your normal bill from CMP. Like Tony showed, it includes those kilowatt hour credits you produce with your solar farm share. There's no other bill or other piece as there is with subscription. With ownership, you're just receiving your credits that you produce yourself with your own solar farm share every month. So that net energy billing process works just the same as if you have panels on your roof like I do. So in the summer, you'll bank up excess credits from your solar farm share. Your bill will be just that $14 a month. And then in the winter, your share will produce less each month, and you automatically pull off your credit bank from the summer. One interesting piece of the subscription versus ownership, with subscription, you are paying for your solar credits every month, which means you pay more in the summer because you're generating more of those credits in the summer to cover your winter usage. So you kind of like flip-flop your seasonality of your typical bills, but you do get that 10 to 15% discount over the course of the 12 months. So the subscription has a lot of benefits, as we talked about. If you can afford to take out a loan or invest in your own solar farm share over the long term, you are going to save more. This graph shows, current utility rates for someone in CMP territory paying about $145 a month. Long-term trend in New England is utility rates go up about 3% per year. So this should be your budget for electricity for the next 25 years if you're currently paying about $145 a month. If you sign into a solar farm, I'm showing 10%, so it could be a little better with 15%. Your cost is still going to increase as utility rates increase. You do get that percentage discount, but it's still locked into whatever the utility is charging. On the other hand, with solar, with an ownership model, you're really pre-buying your electricity for the next 25, likely 35 years. There's a 25-year lease for a solar farm and 2 5-year extensions that we expect the farms to utilize. So, but we look at it over 25 years because the panels have a 25-year power output warranty. So in this model, you could take out a loan for that solar farm share and pay in the first couple of years, basically the same amount per month that you're paying now for your CMP bill. So basically your solar farm loan's about $145 a month. And it stays that way for the next in this model for the next 15 years. And then after you paid off the loan, you start saving that $145 a month, except 15 years from now, it's going to be more than $145 a month on your electric bill that you're going to be charged for the same number of kilowatt hours. So your savings increases over time. There's a lot going on here. And, obviously, if you do have the funds to do a solar investment without taking out a loan, then you don't pay interest and the savings are a little bit larger. So we can get into more of that if there are questions. It's also what we talk through everyone with a detailed proposal. If you're interested, you can just send us an electric bill and we can put that together for you and show you what that would look like. Some people wonder if solar makes sense in Maine. Don't we get too much snow? We install our ground mounted systems with a 35-degree pitch due to our northern latitude. If you keep an eye out, you can often tell our ground mounted systems from ones built by southern contractors because ours will be tilted more. We found a 35-degree pitch is the sweet spot for snow shedding and winter production without adding significantly to installation cost. And that's, one piece that Revision is started in Maine. We're a Maine-based company. Our solar farms are developed, engineered, built, and maintained by Mainers for Mainers. We just launched a new website and we got this interactive map, which is pretty cool. So I just pulled this up last night and you can just filter by solar farms and you can see the 19 that we've built in the state. The majority of these were actually before that legislation that Tony talked about in 2019. Before that, it was a 9-member cap on solar farms, which is why they were only this large. And now, the last few that we've been building are hundreds of members. And obviously that drives down the cost for every member, the economies of scale. And that's really what has unlocked, these large solar farm development and, a lot of out-of-state development into Maine because those large farms are now able to be built with the legislation. So one thing I wanted to spend a little bit of time on is how much space does solar take up? Because it's a common thing out there. People are seeing construction of solar farms. Sometimes land is cleared to put those farms in. And there's, rightly concern over what's happening to that land and what our land use is. So there's a lot going on in this slide, but I wanted to point out that this is a study that was done by Dr. Richard Perez for the lowest cost modeling for 95% clean energy in Maine, and found that that would be about 55% solar, 40% wind, and then a remaining 5% natural gas that's still very expensive to get rid of completely with battery storage or some other forms of energy storage. So in Maine, we needed to devote less space to solar than is currently used in the high density urban land use today. So that is over here about 87 square kilometers, which is about 40 square miles, is the total land that we need to, and that's this large dot represented here. And that's if we fully electrify heating and transportation in Maine also. The smaller dot is just covering our current electric load in the state. So it is some land. We're fortunate that we have a lot of land in the state, and we are trying to fill up as many rooftops as we can as well and not do it all on the ground. But I also wanted to point out that these are important clean energy goals, and that a solar farm, while it's not as good of a neighbor as a open field or forest, It's really better than any other form of development that might be there. It adds no strain to water, sewer, or traffic infrastructure, adds no pollution, including light or noise, and a fence or other buffer can be planted to block it from view if needed. So just wanted to put that in perspective as we see, solar being built around the state. And there certainly are concerns about land use that are valid. But in general, I think we need to think about the alternatives that we have, and that this is a really important part of our future to produce clean electricity in our state. So we are, looking for land for solar farms. It is really this triple win in New England. It's this economic opportunity for landowners and local farmers. There's some great videos we have on our website of multi-generational farmers that are diversifying their farm and really providing this added resilience with putting a solar farm on sort of part of the less valuable, less productive land. And then, for all these other reasons that we've talked about, it does take a long time to properly develop a solar site, and we work with the landowner. So there's an online guide here if you're interested. Our land team is led by Holly Noyes, who grew up on her family's Maine dairy farm. And we help interested landowners pursue the opportunity in a manner that is beneficial and responsible. So with all that being said, both of Revision solar farms that are planned to be built in 2023, one of them has begun construction. The other one is ready to go. Those are the latest one just reached capacity, which happened faster than we expected. So we're currently, sort of in a waiting list for that farm and working toward our next available farms, which at this point, we don't expect to come online until 2024. So got a little bit of a delay there for our next ownership farms. It's been a really desirable product. And if there are subscription farms that are available, you could always sign up and get subscription savings until an ownership comes online for you, is one way to think about it. So if you like, you can read one of my favorite quotes from Bob Morrison. He's got his own ground mounted solar right behind him there, but I like to reflect these days on when kids will learn in history classes in the near future that we all used to live with tanks of toxic explosive substances around us all the time. And just think about the, exciting clean energy future that's out there with a lot less pollution of all kinds and quiet, peaceful Maine that we all know and love. And just want to make another plug for Rewiring America. It's a nonprofit organization that I support. They do really good work breaking everything down. There's a lot there around the new incentives in the Inflation Reduction Act. There's an incentive calculator you can use. We still got some time before we know the details of some of those rebate programs and how they'll be handled through the state level. But the tax credits, there's really 30% tax credits now for all of those technologies that we talked about to get people off of fossil fuels. So with that, I'll wrap it up.
Thank you. That was another great presentation. Thank you both. I know that folks have been patiently waiting to ask some questions, but we have two super qualified people to try and answer questions about community solar. So
Go ahead, Stephen.
This question is for Tony. I'm one of the folks, I live in a condo. I'm one of the folks that have been waiting for a subscription-based solar. And unfortunately, the project seems to keep getting delayed. I think we're now 2023. I'm also a condo board member. And is there any reason why a not-for-profit condo association can't avail themselves of a subscription service solar program.
Yeah, sorry to hear that you're waiting for credits. It's not uncommon, unfortunately. You know, I think as Thomas said, there's so much demand right now. Like a lot of people are subscribing. Some farms are rolling online now, some are delayed. But there's that is frustrating, I know. But you certainly can, your condo association can take advantage. No problem there. Really anyone that pays a utility bill for the most part. So, and that's any person or entity. So yeah, there shouldn't be a reason that you cannot. If you are signed up for a program, you know, there are some developers out there that sold, or they didn't sell subscriptions, but they reserve spots for folks, and then their farms are not going to go on live, or not going to go online ever or in the near future. And some people are leaving those programs and moving to others. You know, Thomas brought up the point of subscribing and then moving over to, you know, a pay model. I think the idea of being able to enter a subscription, then leave it if it's not working for you, or if you want to do something else, is one of the powers of subscription. So you can do that as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, like many condo buildings, we look first at putting a rooftop installation in, but between heat pumps and skylights and there's no room to do it.
Sure.
Tony, just one last question.
Yeah.
Would it be unfair to characterize Maine Community Solar as a sales agent for the three companies you mentioned? You have to generate revenue somehow, and I assume it's by referral fees to them.
Yeah, no, that's not unfair. I would just say that it's not just for those three organizations. So we do work with some others as well. So our whole goal, I'm a big believer in intent. Like our whole goal is to find the right community solar program for folks. So yeah, not just those three, but I don't think that would be unfair at all. Pretty
Great,
accurate.
thank you very much.
Of course.
Stephen, I'd just add in, you know, condos are typically a challenge to go solar until community solar came on the scene. So whether it's subscription or ownership, that is what we recommend for condo members who call revision these days, is send us your electric bill and we can show you what an ownership model share would do for you. And it's going to be similar economics, and actually probably better than what we could do on your roof, because of the challenges with condos, and it usually just isn't that much roof space for how much electricity that building is using.
Great. Ruth?
Thanks, Julie. Just to follow on Stephen's question, I'm also in a condominium. I'm also on the board of the condominium association, and our association signed up for a community solar program, Stephen, and we're also still waiting to come online. A number of people in our condominium association, I mean, individual owners, including myself, also signed up at the same time. So we were early adopters. I think we signed up in about 2020 and are still waiting. This next amp, just to, you know, call out the name. And it sounds like what you're, my question was going to be, does it make sense at this point to, you know, look at some other, you know, vendors, including Revision, hoping that we could get online sooner? It sounds like from what you're saying, Tony, that that's a, you know, a valid, you know, next thing to try to explore, you know, other potential vendors.
You certainly can. It's well within your right to do it. You know, I think that, you know, Next Amp unfortunately had that issue where they signed people up really early and then their farms haven't gone live. So we have a number of people that are in that situation that come to us daily almost, it feels like, asking what their other options are. So you're well within your rights to do that. You can cancel your agreement with them if you decide to. And I would just say, whoever you talk to, just ask that very pointed question. When are these farms going live? When are the farms that you're filling up now intended to go live? And they should tell you and you can just make that evaluation. The last I heard was end of 2023 for next AMP, but I'm not even sure how accurate that is, to be honest. So,
I think I'll come to you.
okay, cool. That would be great. Excellent. We'd be happy
Thank
to,
you.
of course.
Okay.
I'll
Really
jump
good.
in there on a little more context. There is a lot of large solar farms that are being built and trying to be interconnected into the grid. And, when you break up that process into multiple companies, some doing the developing, some doing the engineering, others doing the construction, others doing the finding of consumers for that electricity. There's a lot of different players, and it's a sort of, there are unknowns in that build timeline, and I think the communication there can be challenging. Revision has been very frustrated with the utility at different times because of delays, and on top of that, we have supply chain issues as well with transformers and other equipment. I think that's a reality that many farms are facing, and it's something that we try really hard to be conservative on our timelines, and still sometimes farms have been a little bit later than we expected to be turned on. So just to give you some of that context, it's also it's a complicated process to do all the permitting and interconnection and building. And
Totally
Yeah.
understood. Yeah.
Thanks, Thomas.
Thanks, Tom.
I see a lot of hands up. I would love to get to everyone. We technically have 6 minutes left. I don't know if people are able to stay on a little bit longer, but with that said, we'll get to as many as possible. So go ahead,
Yeah,
Molly.
I can stay as long as needed.
Great.
same.
Were you
Great,
saying
thanks.
I should go next, Julie?
Yeah, please. You're next to my screen.
My question is about this very cool kind of new technology called Smart Flower. And I was curious, it's very beautiful. The idea of not putting solar panels on the roof, but having a smart flower in your backyard that rotates and gets much more sun as a result of being able to shift where the solar panels are. I'm curious if you guys know about it, are interested in having a pilot site in Maine, because I can't pay the full amount, but I'd be interested in paying part.
Yeah, good question, Molly. There's a bunch of different types of solar trackers. Single axis just does this. Dual axis is where it follows the sun throughout the day. There's a company in Vermont, All Earth Renewables, that we've installed hundreds of their trackers in our history. And it's a really cool product. They boast that it adds like 30% to the annual output. We found it's actually usually less than that. I mean, if you're perfectly on top of a hill without any shade, I think is where you get that 30% boost. Unfortunately, one of the beautiful parts about solar is that there's no moving parts. And so when you add in this moving component, you add in some maintenance potential and cost and concern over storms and icing and all these different things that are realities in our Maine climate. So we actually don't offer those dual axis trackers anymore. We really, we've been in business about 20 years now and really want to figure out what the most reliable, practical, long-term investment is for your clean energy production. And so unfortunately, we would not put in one of those systems for you, but would love to talk to you about rooftop or community solar or a fixed ground mount.
Bummer in a way, just because they're aesthetically quite beautiful.
Well, that's where community solar comes in. If you don't want to look at solar on your own property, then you buy an ownership model and get the same economics, or sign up for a subscription.
Yep. Thanks. David and Holly.
Hi, I was interested in the comment about, I think it's NextStamp, a subscription model. We waited for that for a number of months.
And we finally gave up and I started looking online. I found a website, is powermart.com. Power, M-A-R-T. We found a farm up in Belfast and we're now actually in their, on their subscription. And we've been generating power there. So my suggestion would be if you're into a situation where you can't get onto a farm because the timeline keeps getting put off and put off, I found NextAmp was very helpful and friendly in terms of suggesting, well, how do we cancel our applications? Did it very quickly, and we got into another one. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you for that. Russell?
Yes, thank you. To either presenter, could you just comment briefly on the bill that's been introduced regarding RECs? I know it's a substantial part of the income for developers of solar farms. It seems like the gist of it is that the proponents of the bill are suggesting that renewable energy is somehow losing its renewable aspect by who owns the RECs, which doesn't make any sense to me, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on it.
Thomas, you want to take that first, and then I can.
Yeah, sure. This is can be a long-winded answer, but I'll try to keep it brief. I also love your surfing photo behind you, Russell. And yeah, that distracted me there for a minute. But so renewable energy certificates, I think it's important to call them certificates and not renewable energy credits, because if you call them credits, people get confused with the actual kilowatt hour credits. So these are two separate things. There's the electrons that are produced that get sent into the grid, and you get kilowatt hour bill credits. That's the primary thing. That's all Tony and I have been talking about. And that's really, that's the actual clean electricity. There's also a nationwide program that try to quantify and incentivize that clean energy generation. Each 1,000 kilowatt hours sent into the grid from a clean energy producing site earns this extra sort of golden ticket carbon credit. That's one renewable energy certificate, one REC. So then there's this other market for buying and selling RECs. And that's a function to try to incentivize and provide additional value for clean energy generation and to quantify it, because once those electrons are in the grid, they're just like the electrons from the coal plant. So the REC market, I think, is important because it is a market mechanism to boost the value of clean energy on the grid and provide an additional benefit for people producing clean energy. And I still see that as very separate from what you actually do with the clean energy electron. So if you own a solar farm share, you're earning, you're crediting your own usage by producing electrons at your farm, and you're covering the usage that, your home uses in electricity each month. The RECs are this separate thing that actually in our model and similar to subscription get sold to, well, in subscription, sorry to answer for you, Tony, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but those go to the investor like the tax credit does. In Revision's ownership model, those RECs go to try to cover as much of the lease payment and the liability insurance and the maintenance of that farm as possible. So I didn't really get into it, but that's kind of the one difference between rooftop solar.
Can I just jump in? I get the difference. I understand the RECs and the investment in the whole separate market, but I didn't get the gist of the proposed bill. I mean, what's the complaint essentially?
Well, could I jump in real quick, Thomas?
Go for it.
Thanks, Thomas.
Sure. So, but I'll just share my own personal view, right? And that is, so we obviously all here, well, at least I feel like I do, and it sounds like Thomas does, you know, we're believers in renewable energy and sustainability and doing what's right. So like when I look at it from that perspective, I kind of have an issue with the fact that RECs from something that I'm supporting are being sold to fossil fuel companies, right? And so fossil fuel companies get RECs, they get credit for renewable energy, even though maybe they don't, let's say, deserve it, but they're able to buy them, right? So there's a tension there. But if I flip it around and I look at it, to Thomas's point, the RECs are actually serving a really valuable market-based economic benefit that promotes the growth of renewables. Okay, so I see why people get frustrated, because they're like, geez, these fossil fuel companies, or let's say a large manufacturer or chemical company, can buy RECs and really offset their carbon footprint legally, right? So that doesn't seem fair to some people, and I can see that angle. But also at the same time, because they're buying those, that gives the companies that are producing renewable energy more money, more resources, they can produce more of it. So I see both sides, but I think that's maybe, is that the tension that you're talking about?
Well, it's long-term. The RECs provide a long-term incentive in that market, right? And because as was pointed out, I mean, you know, 1 megawatt, you know, is one REC, right? So, I mean, I understand how that works to function to support the investment in the industry for developers. And I don't have any problem with that. That's sort of standard operating for a lot of business models, you know, not RECs, but that kind of incentivizing for a public good. I was just confused about the argument in the article I read anyway, and I'll drop after this. I didn't agree with it, basically. You know, and it didn't seem to me like it, you know, who owns the RECs is immaterial to whether or not the energy is renewable. And that's where I think the article was confusing. So anyway, I hate to see that get stripped out and become a, you know, a real point of contention, because, you know, we're still in the infancy of this industry, even though it's taken off in terms of where we have to go. And if they take away the development incentive, which accrues over many, many, you know, megawatts, so years for a lot of smaller farms, we're not going to get to our goals very fast. So anyway,
I feel like we could have an entire Coffee and Climate just talking about RECs. I mean, it's a big topic. It's definitely a big topic. I
always ask that question, what happens to the RECs? And I've had a number of people that say, well, if I don't own the RECs, I don't want to do it. So it's an important topic for sure.
I have to say, I do agree with Tony to a large extent. If we can, I want to move on to Jody. I'm sorry, I see you've been waiting patiently.
I haven't been waiting patiently. I've had questions answered, so I keep taking my hand down and moving on to a new question.
I wondered why you just kept I felt like your slot just kept moving away.
No, because it keeps getting answered, but I still have a couple. I still have one, and it might be two. Question for Thomas. Can I get subscription through Revision Energy, or do you only do ownership? And I apologize if I missed that.
Yeah, that's a good question. We did offer a subscription model for a period, but after some experience in that, we really decided we wanted to focus our resources and the land and the sites on ownership model.
Okay, perfect.
So, yeah, we don't currently have a subscription offering and don't plan to.
That makes my next steps easier. And then, which is just to choose between those two models. And then if in the whole, and I apologize if I missed this, I kind of tuned out when you guys got into the nitty gritty. Does the subscription model do less for the environment than the ownership model, or do they both achieve the same environmental goal?
That's a good question.
That's a very good question. I can try to go first, and then Tony, you can add anything. You know, if we have the same farm that's the same size and one's going to subscription customers and one's going to ownership customers. Those farms are the same size. If they're engineered and built exactly the same in the same site, producing the exact same number of kilowatt hours per year, then I would say that they are doing the same for the environment. As far as where the savings and where the value goes.
Oh, I got that. I got that.
Kind of differs.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as the sort of carbon offset, then we get into the RECs, which is a little piece of that. But those are really in some ways handled similarly. And just one piece on the RECs, most RECs are bought by utilities these days, actually in Massachusetts, because of their legislative mandates for increasing amounts of clean energy. So I totally agree with Russell that it is an important mechanism to drive this production of clean energy, and taking it away just pushes us in the wrong direction. Even if there are some organizations that are claiming carbon neutrality, I think it's more of an education problem to realize that people that say, carbon offset is different than owning their own solar array or being part of, a solar farm that's actually sending them kilowatt hour credits.
I'd like to jump in on that as well. Jody, before this legislation that got passed in 2020, or was it 2019? 2019, yeah. And both South Portland and Portland were really involved in that legislation. Really, the ownership model didn't make sense except for very few, and there was no subscription model at all available. And so I think what our overall, you could probably, it's like paper versus plastic on the environment, but our overall goal is to build as much solar as possible in a way that it makes sense. And so these are just two different models for people who can't have solar on their roofs. And I think they both are going to serve the same goal. It's just a matter of what fits best for people.
Yeah.
Great.
Yep. And I thought Thomas had a really good slide that showed, because it's really about what works for you, right? The benefit is really the same, but different people are in different situations. So whether it's ownership or subscription, just based on your personal situation.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, I think the final thing, just thinking about that a little further, it's a slight difference, but just like how that farm was constructed and the land use and what was there before, there's some slight environmental differences potentially there between different, construction, but, the same farm, like I said, producing clean energy is, equal roughly in its carbon benefit.
Yep.
Great.
Audubon came out with some great solar siting guidelines for people.
Oh, okay, cool.
So they have those. Yep. Let's go back to Bill. Maybe you can close us out unless other people raise their hand before the end.
Sure. Thank you, Julie. So one comment, one simple short question, comment that I think Tony and both Thomas would agree on. Best siting would be a roof. Second best siting would probably be a brownfields. And I think what we're seeing now is sort of making lemonade out of lemons, in that these PFAS contaminated soils would be perfect for solar farms. Often as a solar provider or solar supporter, I hear a lot, well, don't take our farmland, don't take our timber, but we need to find some way to use these now PFAS contaminated soils in a useful way. So if you're a solar supporter, as I am, that would be one way for you to answer or address that question. Thank you.
Sure.
Bill, it's a really good point, and I'd say it's inversely. Thomas could probably speak to this. It's an inverse cost relationship to where we want to site solar. The green fields that are close to great power sources are the cheapest. Rooftops can be kind of expensive. Another great place, as the city of South Portland and so many other cities and towns around Maine, is to put them on our capped landfills. I can't think of a better use for that. Again, it adds cost to the project. So it's a matter of savings, right? You can save a huge amount if you want to go and put it in a greenfield, or you can save a really good, reasonable amount, still to me, a huge amount if you put it on a capped landfill. So I would just encourage people to encourage their cities and towns to utilize the capped landfills.
Yeah.
Yeah, well said. And it's a really good point, Bill, about the PFAS sites that theoretically would be less expensive to build on than a capped landfill because you don't have to have the ballasted system. But I do love the use of landfills because they're already cleared and sunny and usually close to power.
So, it's 1/4 past, and this has been such a great discussion. I feel like, at some point, maybe we'll have a follow-up for people who weren't able to make it. And the recording is going to be on oneclimatefuture.org. So if you want to share it with people, of course, I'm sure Tony and Thomas would be available in their work capacities to answer follow-up questions if you want to pursue that. And I just want to thank everybody for joining us this morning. David and Holly, you sneak in one last thing and then we'll close.
Can the attenders get a transcript, including the wonderful slideshows that was part of this discussion? I'm particularly interested in some of the links. That's why I'm asking. Could it be sent to the email with which we registered for this?
Erin and me and Katie, can we do that?
Yeah, I'll send an email out to everybody who registered with the recording and both of the presentations. So all the slides and then any links that our presenters think, would be useful. We'll send out later today.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tony, and so much, Thomas. And I hope we keep going with solar because South Portland and Portland have some massive goals around adding more solar to our cities.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. Everyone have a great day.
Thank
Great.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.